Fiscal year 2026 budget meeting. Yay! We are council members present, myself, Lisa Lane, Wayne McCall, and Brantley Vest. At this time, Kelly Byers is absent, but I believe she is on her way, actually.
Yep.
And she has made, oh,
Hey, there
I thought
she
she
is.
made her entrance. Oh, she is here, yay. She's the wet one, by the way. It's cut loose out there.
Call me, I would've come out there with an umbrella and got you.
Okay,
Kidding, really, but I would've.
you have before you the fiscal year 2026 budget with a whole bunch of red numbers on it. This is a different, these are different figures than what came in our packet. I will let Shannon explain a little bit more of that here in just a moment, but mainly this came from our accountants and our financial folks. All right, I am going to start at the fiscal year 2026 general fund budget highlights. And I'm going to take us through this initially. Let me start off to say, to start with, this budget is balanced, period. This budget maintains a 50% revenues of general fund balance also. Our budget is increasing from
Have another one?
8 mil to 9.2, and this budget increase is mostly for new fire truck and police vehicles. Revenues are projected to increase 12% over the fiscal year 25 budget. The ad valorem motor vehicle tax revenue projected to increase 2% over the fiscal year 25 amended budget. And this is a conservative because we are in a reassessment year. So we're not exactly sure where that's going to be, so we're being conservative about that. This budget includes a 5% across-the-board COLA. We're including 3 new FTE positions, 1 firefighter, 1 police officer, and 1 admin specialist. There is a new fire truck in this budget, 2 new police Tahoes, a service bed for the Public Works pickup truck, an RTV for trail maintenance. It also includes body cameras, body armor, dispatch chairs, evidence refrigerator, and increased training. There is a fire air tank fill system in this. $40,000 for facade improvement grants. This budget reduces the utilization of comp time. This comp time has been a long-standing fund balance liability that we are now beginning to get control of. It transfers $346,636 to Capital Projects Fund from excess general fund balance. You'll also see throughout this and looking through this some line crossouts. This is some additional accounting line item adjustments to rename or to reallocate funds into combined line items within the budget. And once we're through with this, if we find we're looking at a surprisingly large revenue overage at the first of the year due to the conservative revenue outlook being more than we expect it to be, then we certainly can consider and would consider another budget amendment at that time, as we have done this past year. So briefly, that's where we are. I believe, Ms. Shannon, you have some more information for us.
Thank you, Chair Baumgartner. Carson, do you mind if I pull up? I've got it down here.
And by the way, before you get started, Shannon, I am going to say thank you to you and for Carson for all the incredible hard work. Rest of council doesn't know this, but we have had about 5 or 6 meetings, Shannon and I, not to mention all the work that Carson has done previous to me coming into the office and sitting down and taking a look at this. And Miss Lisa Lane, thank you very much for your participation on this also. She has looked over a good majority of this until we get to the point we are now. So anyway, Shannon, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Baumgartner, members of the committee, and members of council. We are especially honored to bring you this budget. It's been a busy year, but we have definitely put our heart and soul into presenting you a fiscally responsible program with the appropriate allocation of resources which are necessary for our government functions. I want to start off also by thanking Grant and Lisa for the time that they have spent with us, and Carson for innumerable hours and innumerable restarts. And every time you change one little number, it changes the whole packet of documentation over and over and over. So I appreciate the patience and that. I also want to thank all of our department heads who sit at the table with us, and they truly come in excellent faith to that. I'm super impressed that we've gotten so quickly to a rapport of ask for what you need, identify what's a want, and then we work, I feel like, in excellent good faith going forward together to accomplish that. So I'm very proud to tell you that we were able to accomplish all of the needs of each of our department heads in this budget request. So we believe this is a sound management and financial tool for us to use. We've inventoried every department's budget, both operationally and for capital expenditures. Few highlights: we do have some FTEs and a COLA in here. We have maintained very fiscally conservative policies. We've begun looking at upgrading old and expensive equipment. There is money in this budget for master planning for parks and also for operations, depending on how that depending on how that master planning comes out, and then to begin our new Dicey Park. So those are some of the exciting things from the very beginning. We'll roll through, Carson. This budget does show 2% growth in our ad valorem budget from our amended budget, and which it represents approximately 46% of our total revenues. We projected 1% growth in business licensure. Let me explain this. This is from our amended budget, and we came in due to excellent effort on Renee's record-keeping part. We came in over $1 million on that business licensure this year, which is excellent. However, we did have several commercial projects, so I don't want to overestimate that we would, perform at the same level. So I'm sorry, this is 1% off the total of the original FY25 budget, not the amended budget, and that's approximately 12% of the revenues. This is a conservative budget, but I believe we begin to more accurately anticipate our revenue growth so we can more accurately assign resources as we want. We are recommending to council for consideration to maintain a balance of 50% of our unassigned general fund as a percentage of our revenue, budgeted revenues. So we want to keep that general fund balance at 50% of what we anticipate revenues to be. We believe that's very healthy. If you look at the chart next to you, you'll see us compared to our peers. These are both location and size peers. Our financial advisors helped us put this together. You'll see that we're currently sitting at 52.4%, but this budget pushes us up to about 56%. And so we do have a proposed allocation of that 6% over the 50% balance, which totals about $280,788 to complete the capital project funds for the past several years. So when you look at the summary, you will see a use of fund balance, but that is a planned use of fund balance. We're also proposing to, going forward, look at the opportunity to utilize this overage, anything that we're able to accomplish over that 50% revenue budget, to begin assigning that to capital funds, to begin building a capital fund balance there. Also, we are excited to present to you an opportunity to develop a 2% contingency fund, which would be utilized in case of a disaster. We had 2 of those this year. This allows us to operate without hitting our operating lines. You were generous with us at our budget amendment, and we made line item adjustments for the operations this year, but this would allow us to move forward without any concern of our operating budget for up to that 2%. How are we going to do this? We have an $86,000 cash reserve fund right now that sits as cash reserve. We are anticipating about $100,000 to come back in FEMA reimbursements here very shortly. We would request that we just roll that into that 2% contingency fund. That would put us at $186,000, and $189,000 is 2%. So it just sort of fortuitously works out so that we've already got that in place, should you approve that. And then finally, we're working to begin reducing the transfers from hospitality fund into our operations lines. For the past 2 years, we've been at about $370,000 in that line. We're coming down to $185,000. We believe that leaves us in a good financial health to utilize that fund to take on some of the tourism, parks, arts, and things of that nature. And we're maintaining our operations with our general fund millage. Few of the operational highlights here. We do have 3 new full-time positions, a police officer, a firefighter, and an full-time admin assistant. We are looking at a COLA across the board of 5%. We have brought on about $32,000 a year for the streetlights going on Poinsett Highway. If you'll remember, we had to cut that out of the budget when it went over budget so much, and so this finances it out over the next 10 years. For health insurance, the city's cost here increased about 12%. We were able to assume all of that plus an additional 2%. This is very important for recruitment in fire. When we recruit against other fire agencies that are not municipalities, they do try to take on the majority of the health insurance for the family plan. And so we're working our way towards that, but we were able to achieve 2% there. And then also with our Employee Thrive program, we have budgeted about, up to $200 FSA, flexible spending account credit for our employees who attend 7 of the 12 this year. And that can be utilized for copays, anything related to medical expenses. We begin in this budget to streamline the public works maintenance operations. Those were kind of tucked all around in non-departmental administration, fire department, but we have a very sophisticated public works department now. They do an excellent job of maintaining, daily oversight of all of their line items, and so we think it's really important to push those together and put it all up under Philip's department so that he can watch those. We'll notice very quickly if we have a leak, something of that nature, and it just allows us to streamline that operation. And then we did include funding for the park master planning and maintenance upcoming. If you look at the pie chart really quick, sorry, Harrison, it's just interesting that about 66% of our operations, or of our budget here, goes directly to operations, and then that's not counting your motor vehicles and capital outlay, bond indebtedness, things of that nature. For our capital equipment, Grant did a really good job of going over this, but we kind of utilized 2 funds to do this. Most of this is in the capital lease, which is a $1.4 million capital lease. We would look to try to issue a capital lease every other year. There is a cost of issuance, which makes it prudent to plan out and not absorb that cost over and over. But we do have a new fire truck and 2 new police Tahoes. And Chief has requested that we move to rifle-plated body armor. The advantage of this is obviously it will stop a rifle round. Unfortunately, we've too often seen those being utilized. But also they do have a 10-year shelf life as opposed to the 5-year shelf life, and a little less personal fittedness to them too. So it's a little bit more usable around the agency there. He also needs an evidence refrigerator in order to meet his accreditation standards. We have picked up some new dispatch chairs. As you know, dispatchers sit in a chair all day or all night, so we want those to be comfortable and as ergonomic as possible. The camera storage, that's just in our capital outlay line. That is not part of our capital lease. And then for Public Works, we have a service bed for the 2020 pickup truck and an RTV for the trail maintenance. We've got Ugata trails coming on. We've got the Swamp Rabbit Trail. We've picked up a lot of watering responsibilities up along Main Street. And so the golf cart's great and it's usable, but it's not the same capabilities as the RTV. So this is something that Philip asked for to make sure that Abe can help us get up and down all those different components. This year, we've added in a 5-year capital improvement plan. You were patient with me last year, and we just kind of tackled what we had underway, and this begins to think out a little bit further. In 2026, we do need to finish up that North Poinsett Highway streetscape, and I will let you know that this was anticipated in your CIP before I came on, that you would need to find $1.9 million that had not been found yet. Hadn't been identified yet would be a better way to say that. And so even with the cost overages of over $5 million, we found all of that, but a very small bit, but of $363,000. So you will see a transfer from general fund of that $363,000, $64,000, $46,000, sorry, I shouldn't talk without the number right in front of me. That small general fund transfer into the capital line completes the Poinsett Highway project from its original inception and financial planning. All of the overages that we were handed last year, we tackled with revenue sources coming in, but we did not go back and reconcile. So that's something Carson's spent a long time on, is reconciling the capital fund and making sure that everything has been taken care of, and we've accomplished it all. Between Eric and Carson and myself, we've gotten all that done. So we begin to envision going forward. I know we're buying a fire truck this year, guys. We have a 22-year-old fire truck coming right behind it, so we do have to plan that out. You'll see a $1.5 million expense planned in 2028. You know we have to order that now, and it's a 2 to 3 year delivery coming up. So we do anticipate that, and we'll need you to approve that if we're going forward there. We are excited to begin Dicey Park. We've got $50,000 coming from accommodations tax fund balance. From revenues, to tackle the engineering for the new Dicey Park concept plan. And then we begin fundraising, and you'll see $500,000 in both years for grants and fundraising. Mayor Amadon has done a fantastic job of kicking us off there, so I feel very confident we're going to make that this year, and this becomes Beth's and my top priority moving forward after budget, this fundraising effort. There's $65,000 coming in from the hospitality tax revenues into park master planning, as well as $40,000 for new sidewalks, $50,000 for deferred maintenance. I would like to begin with some campus safety upgrades that we've identified, and then if we have room in that budget after that, we would take on painting the exterior of this facility, trying to keep it in crisp condition. And then you'll see that fund sort of mature and grow as our assets get older and will require more care. We have $30,000 in downtown beautification. We just sort of replicate that out for the years to come. And then every other year we pick up street improvements, assuming we're going to have $150,000 coming from our capital plan and matching that with C funds, which is typical that we would get about that much every other year to tackle street improvements. And then we begin to envision some park master plan improvements based on what may come back in a park master plan. And then you can see the fund utilization as we go forth. Fees, we really didn't do very much in the fees. FOIA, we found out it's pretty expensive to retrieve from the IT network, so we've just got that allocation of $90 an hour, plus a thumb drive costs. Very small improvements in the fingerprinting and police reporting, which is the vast majority of what Tanya does in the records department there. We've always had a dumpster fee. It just wasn't on the schedule, so we added that on. That did not go up. And then we look at vendor fees going forward. You will see we've made a small recommendation of an increase to $75 for the farmers market vendors. They do not pay business licensure. The vendor fee is in lieu of the business licensure. And we looked at that. It would begin, if you guys approved it, in April of next year. So there's a full year's worth of planning coming forth for that. Food trucks would be at the same vendor fee allocation. And then art vendors, this is very typical in art shows around the area, to have a $25 art vendor fees. And those just go into the production of those events and the maintenance of the park. Rentals, there's no change here other than to clean up the verbiage. We've always had an application for the nonprofits to receive that 50% reduction, so it's just formalizing that in the document. Moving into accommodations, this is a very healthy fund. The local accommodations fund balance is excellent, and we would propose using a fair bit of it next year for Dicey Park improvements. But for this year, we'll grow it by about $13,500. We will assign out $50,000 for the engineering for Dicey Park, and we will transfer $70,000 to general fund, and that's for police operations, sidewalks, things of that nature. And hospitality tax also has a very healthy fund balance, even after you pay back the hospitality tax bond. And we look at that growing every year. It's improving here. We've got funding for park maintenance, a 4th of July drone show. All of the park maintenance is in this fund. So you do not see that in general fund, you see it in here. We would look to begin to transfer $185,000 to general fund for facade improvement, restriping parking lots, and police staffing, and $135,000 to capital projects for the sidewalks, master planning, and downtown beautification. And then one new thing, and I'll invite Jay to come up and talk about this, but we've had this tree fund, the mitigation fund that's been growing for a number of years, and I think we intend to plant with it, but we haven't done so far. So Jay's put a fair amount of time into looking at how can we really begin tackling our tree canopy plans with this fund this year. So Jay, you want to come up and talk a little about that real quick?
So I reported, I think early on when I got here, we talked about tree canopies, and we're at 45% right now. And so what we'd like to do is set a goal. Let's get to 50%. And each of those percentage points kind of hard to get to. Honestly, I'll be honest about this. The hurricane does not very little to your tree canopy because you just lose some of the trees within the overall tree canopy. You don't get these big voids and annihilation that we saw other places. In order to do it, we have the funds available to raise a couple of the dollars that were in there. One is for tree planting. So we raised that amount so that we can do 200 trees this year. That makes a pretty good benefit. Then we allocated some dollars to what we called impervious removal and bed prep. So areas around town that might be on private property or somebody's parking lot where we could take paving out that wouldn't affect the flow of traffic or anything like that and create a bed for us to put a tree. And quite honestly, specifically on the unimproved side of Main Street. This would be a great place to get some more trees in on that side and create beds. Right now, we don't have any designation towards creating those green spaces, and I think this would be a great thing to put the cost towards doing. The dollars we put, I roughly guesstimated we could get to 7 beds. I hope we could get to more, but dollars fluctuate and there's a lot of unknowns as to what you get underneath pavement and that sort of thing. And the other number that's in there that we want to take advantage of is we've always had this $5,000 towards grants. We want to be able to make the opportunity available, just like our facade improvement grant, for somebody on private property to be able to have a tree planted on their property that would be appropriate to helping us with our tree canopy. And the last thing that's not up there on the board is the tree maintenance. As we go across, we've been applying that mostly to mulching, which takes a good bit, but I'd also like to make sure we start applying that cost to pruning and to overall maintenance so we can maintain our trees for a longer period of time by pruning them to correct where tree branches start to cross and create weaknesses within a tree so they'll last for a longer time. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
I'm just thankful that you're doing this. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be awesome.
I think it's a
for
great
us.
thing for the city to start to use the funds we've had available to actually make a difference. And we're ahead of every municipality in the Greenville County and Greenville County itself, which I think is amazing, since Greenville County has so many unincorporated areas. To be ahead of them in tree canopy when we are an incorporated area, and by very nature we have more impervious areas because we're a town, that we're still ahead of them. And I think the thing to do, Clemson is like slightly ahead of us. They're like the ones we're chasing down. Westminster is too, but that's a very different situation. If you've been over to Westminster, it's easy for them to have a lot of tree canopy the kind of way they're set up. So we're aiming to beat Clemson. That's what we're doing.
Jay, let me ask you, the 7 beds on
Yes.
the other side of Main Street, I love that idea. Do we have like a time frame when we might start that?
You know, I think once we get out here, and this is that we have the funds available to do that, then I can take a look and I will just approach property owners along there where I see opportunities and see if we can't get one going
Right.
as quick as possible. Because then I think that sets up a scenario where somebody can see it and start to take advantage of it in other places. I do think a lot of Main Street when I'm doing this, because we're already doing the improvements along Poinsett Street corridor, but I think this could come into effect on Center Street some too, could be a good place to look, and possibly some locations along State Park Road. I think that would be where it would make the biggest impact over time right now.
No, I agree. I think it'll definitely soften the look of the starkness of not having anything on this side,
That's right.
character-wise, yeah.
It does. Makes it more balanced.
Could I answer any other questions?
I'm going to go ahead, let me go ahead and do a motion, and we will then have discussion following that. So I present before council the City of Travelers Rest fiscal year 2026 general fund budget by making appropriations, levying taxes and fees for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, and ending June 30th, 2026, to provide for budget control of said appropriations by the Travelers Rest City Council and such other matters related thereto effective July 1, 2025. There is hereby levied upon the taxable property within the City of Travelers Rest, South Carolina, for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, is an ad valorem tax of 88.9 on every dollar assessed valuation combined with other anticipated revenue accruing to the City of Travelers Rest shall be sufficient to produce $9,280,927 in revenues. In addition, the incorporated rate fee schedule is approved and fully set forth as part of the ordinance unless otherwise amended by City Council, and the incorporated capital improvement plan is approved and set forth verbatim as part of the ordinance unless otherwise amended by the City Council. That's my motion.
Second.
Thank you for the second. All right, I am opening this up then for discussion to, I know this is a Ways and Means Committee, but everyone is certainly invited to participate because this is such a large thing. Let me go on and tell you, on the budget page that you were set there on your desk initially has got some red on top of it. Let me talk with you about that. There's a couple small adjustments. After receiving further input from our financial advisors and accountants, what's happening on that is in that general fund, the increase in expenditures line 490 debt services jumps to $1,080,887. The next increase, the GO bond, other financing sources, to $210,000 to cover the full October payment of the 2017 GO bond. And the capital lease is actually deleted. It was in here twice and the accountants wanted us to take it out. Delete the capital equipment lease proceeds and the other financing sources, and it's only reflected in the capital fund. This reduces the general fund balance to $280,778. So, Ms. Shannon, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Baumgartner. Yeah, basically, all we see there is an increase to the to the GO bond. So we had the 2020 C bond matured, and per your financing plan, that would to be rolled into the 2017 IRPB. So that goes up to $210,000, which is why you see an increase in the debt service, but also an increase in the proceeds coming in. And then the capital equipment lease is not reflected in the general fund budget. It's only reflected in the capital fund budget. And then finally, there is a transfer from general fund to complete the Poinsett Streetscapes of $346,636, which leaves us with a use of the general fund balance per the planned of $280,778.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah.
So a fire truck now is 1.5 million, because I remember it used to be like 750,000, so it just went up a lot.
The fire truck is 1.1 million. The other vehicles, since we're doing a capital lease, it makes sense to go ahead and get your other vehicles that are coming through. Chief has 28 vehicles. So, you know, we do have to stay on a pretty regular maintenance plan. If we're only going to be doing it every other year, even though we did have a large purchase of 6, we keep going with that, because otherwise you'll get 10 years out and you'll have 10-year-old cars, and that won't work, obviously. So that's included in the 1.5 is Chief's vehicles, Phillips vehicles.
The maintenance of those.
Purchasing
new
new ones, in
Okay.
the capital lease, everything that's in the capital lease, and we can put that slide back up, Carson, if you want, because it's easier to see that way. That's in the 1.5,
way too
or
fast.
1.4 million.
Thank you.
I got a couple of little small questions here.
Yes, sir.
And going back to the very first page, mayor and council, that's like a 17% increase.
Yes, sir. Let me look at that and pull it up. It's not, well, it's a very small balance to begin with.
I
so
know,
when you
but
increase
we've
it,
never
it goes
used
up.
that money anyway.
So it's a very small, it's a COLA, which doesn't go into effect until after elections per state law. And then there's a very small allowance in there for an increase in the cost of the trip to the MASC conventions, and then also a very small increase in there in council participation in local
I mean,
events.
I'm not being argumentative. I mean,
That's a great
just
question.
certain things that jump out.
Yeah, I'll mention this too. I
Like,
think,
you know, that's a pretty good increase for that line item.
hey, Wayne.
MASC is most of that, because we didn't have.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, because it was in
I
Greenville
don't
this
go.
year.
You
Yeah.
don't go.
Yeah.
you
But it
know.
was in Greenville, and so I think we didn't have
Yeah.
anything in it the last 2 years,
right.
yeah.
And administrative, that's 20%, basically. Okay, so hit the highlights of that again.
Sure, absolutely. We've got a 5% COLA in there, and you've got a new FTE for the administrative assistant. And then there's a very small increase in there for the employee programming. And that's going to be the highlights of that. Yep, insurance costs, cloud permit costs went up to $20,000. And that's it.
Okay, so it's basically a COLA, a 5% COLA.
COLA, FTE, cloud permit, which is what Renee utilizes for all the permitting processes.
Okay.
And there's about $1,000 in training, since we have 3 people who need to go to training
All
now.
right. And again, I'm not being argumentative. I mean, I just, you know,
Yep.
we need to ask these questions.
Absolutely. There's
Um,
also $2,000 additional in the financial services for the audit, financial advisors and accountants in there.
And on the police side, you got about a 17%, 16% increase? Is that
Most of that's
primarily
going to
due to
be
vehicle?
COLA. Most of that's going to be your COLA across the board, and then there's a new FTE in there as well for a training officer. We talked about that in the budget retreat. There's also.
But the training officer is going to replace one captain?
It's not replacing,
All
it's
right.
it's a new FTE, the training officer.
So are you going to replace the captain?
We
You're gonna have
replaced
two
the
cap- so-
captain with a,
Okay, so that should be a wash, right?
Well, we replaced the captain with a road deputy.
Okay.
So we didn't hire back a captain, we hired a lower
Okay.
level road deputy, but we're bringing in a new FTE of a training officer.
Now, are his vehicles included in his budget?
Correct.
Or is it a
Correct.
separate line item?
Nope, vehicle's already taken care
So
of.
while we're on the budget, while we're on the vehicles, and I know this has already been answered one time, and I know obviously you got a good deal on these Tahoes, but if I go buy a Tahoe, it's 80 grand.
That's right.
But if I go buy a Tahoe, it's 80 grand.
We've gotten it better than that.
But that's what I'm saying.
We've gotten it better than that, but we are budgeting about 80 grand for it to be fully loaded with all the police package. So the lights, the radios, the whole shebang for about 80 grand.
So what's the difference between, I mean, other than aesthetics and the Tahoe's nice to ride around in it, than a regular cruiser, Benji? I mean, how do you benefit cost savings
Go ahead,
that
Chief.
way?
Tahoes for about 53. The Explorers are about 48.
Oh, that's all?
The motors, yes, the motors in the Tahoes naturally aspirate, so they can run and sit and idle much
Yeah,
longer
I
and not.
understand that.
In the Ford motors, they tear up quicker and wear down quicker.
Right.
So we anticipate these being able to last longer.
Is that what's on the state list this year's Fords? I mean, is that the only thing that's out there now?
The only thing to choose from are Durangos, Dodge Durangos,
Which are
Ford
good.
Explorers, or Chevy Tahoes, that is it, or Ford F-150 trucks.
And that's going through state procurement?
Yes.
Yes, sir. And
That's the
also,
only
we did the work on what is your residual value when you trade them in at the end,
I
and they
understand what that
maintain much
means, yeah.
better residual value. So it actually, there's a lot of statistics out there, and we spent some time with Enterprise Fleet Management to learn this, but it's cheaper cost per mile
Okay.
to drive the Tahoes than
I
it
can
is
buy
the
that.
others.
All right, now, and I'll got a couple more and I'll be through with this.
Sure.
Okay, you're expecting only a 2% increase on ad valorem. All right, what's the increase in number of citizens in town?
We have about 500 homes coming on, but, homes only pay 4%. That's why, you always have to do your math on how much that's improving the budget versus using the budget.
50%.
All right, not about 50%.
If you're projecting 2%, that's 50%. 4% is 50%. I mean, what I'm saying is if you're projecting only a 2%
Because it's-
increase in ad valorem, but you're gonna have, everybody's gonna pay 4%. I mean, so that ain't gonna wash. If you got 400 homes coming on, you average probably 350.
I expect to have
And-
about 200 homes coming on, and I'm thinking that's going to be about $88,000 right there. The way that the reassessment works is they freeze us this year at our current value of the mill, total millage that comes in. So that's our budget, that's our revenues last year. They will recalculate it and reassess taxes for that millage. So they'll probably roll back our millage. They were capped at a 15% growth total. In talking with the county, the auditor, and the financial advisors, we do anticipate that this will come back significantly higher in revenues, but we want to be pleasantly surprised rather than scrambling to readjust. And
So-
so we would anticipate it will be significantly higher. That you've had a 15% growth every year for the last couple of years, average of 15%.
I know all these aren't coming on this year, but we got 165 at White Hawk Meadows.
Yes, sir.
We got 40-something right beside it at Spring Park.
Yes, sir.
We got another 40-something right down from it on Main Street. We got 80-something over there at, on Bowers Road, on the annex, okay? And then on Hemlock Tubbs Extension, God forbid if they ever start building something over there, you got apartments plus 40, 50-something townhomes.
We anticipate about 200 of those will roll on in this next
This
fiscal
year.
year. Yes.
Okay.
We're still just trying to play it conservative in this.
Yeah.
So that we get to January.
I get all that. I'm just asking the questions that need to be asked. I'm just asking that.
Giving it a little
All
bit
right.
more explanation.
Comp time,
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Let's
comp
talk
time.
about comp time.
all right. How much time do you give to use comp time?
Well,
Do
and
they retire in a year? I mean, is there a set period to use comp time?
I do not believe there is a set period right now. Well, I know that there's not a set period right now. So we got hit with $34,000 of comp time. It sits on our books as, assigned fund balance. So, but we do need to move away from it. We are now the only city who utilizes this. Comp time is earned at your current pay and paid out at whatever your pay is when you leave. So for instance, we had 3 folks leave us, just a few months back, and they were paid at a significantly higher rate than most of the hours were earned at. So it's a good deal for the employees, but it's not a great deal for the city. It becomes a growing liability, like an interest rate, so to speak. And so what we've begun to do is phase it down. So we've inserted more time in the overtime. So that line goes from 20,000 to 60,000, for instance, for police. But then we will begin to implement, and this is part of what we want to do in a new or an updated handbook, employee handbook, begin to implement how much you can roll over year to year and start building that down. Talked with Malden's city administrator. They bit the bullet about 3 years ago, 400,000 plus. They just paid it all out and ended it completely. City of Greenville's looking at biting the bullet right now and ending it completely.
And
That's
just
something they're doing.
just completely eliminate comp time?
Completely eliminate comp time. I don't think it's smart to do that right away. For us, I think we can phase it down. Plus, we have employees who are used to getting it, so we want to kind of work with them and go in that
So
direction. But phasing it out over a couple of years.
just like what we used to do in the federal system is comp time for time off. In other words, if you had 8
Correct.
hours, you got a day off.
Correct.
Instead of paying actual number of dollars.
Yes, sir. We've talked about this in our executive leadership team planning. And one thing that we've noted is when we have new employees come on, younger, haven't built up that time off, they might get married, they might have a kid, they might need to build up some time off.
Exactly.
So it might make sense to have something like a week or 2 weeks that you could build up, but not a year's worth. And we have some employees who have several months of this built up.
That's,
They're not
to
building
stop.
comp time when they're getting paid as off-duty officers, like at the market or other things, right?
No, they get paid for those services.
hey, I'm through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very minor question. The fees for the farmer's market vendors, is that on top of what they already pay the market?
Yes, Councilmember Byers, they pay in lieu of a business licensure, they pay this vendor fee when they show up to be a vendor at each farmer's market. And they have received a sticker noting that they've paid their vendor fee, and they go on.
And it's each week they pay that?
Yes,
And does it come directly to us or go
yes,
through the
it comes
market?
directly to us.
I'm sorry, is the 75 a weekly fee or an annual fee?
You know, I would, let me follow up with you on that. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's a weekly, it's in lieu of the business licensure, but I could be wrong on that now that you asked that.
And the art fee, the fee for the art vendors, is that Browse and Stroll along Main? Okay.
That's Browse and Stroll and any future art shows that we could bring together. And Beth did a good amount of research on this and compared us to other small towns that do art shows and things of that nature. We feel like that's very comparable.
The art fee
And we
doesn't,
anticipate those go, I'm so sorry.
okay.
Those fees would go, the art fees would stay in the hospitality sponsorship line, so they would stay in for tourism, arts promotion. And I envision next year bringing to you a public arts special revenue fund that funds itself through the auctioning off of the rabbits, the vendor fees, art vendor fees, and other opportunities as we go forward.
The art fee, I think that seems fair. The 75 every week for farmers feels a little high to me, so maybe we just think about it a little bit.
Well,
Is
isn't
that
it
fair or
s-
not?
isn't
Other
it
people-
60 right now?
It's 60 now.
We're just increasing $15,
Oh,
and it does not go into effect until next year.
Okay, so we're already charging $60.
Correct.
There's
Yes.
already
Per
charge there.
market.
It's just increasing it.
You two help me out on this. When we first built Trailblazer, did we not have a stipulation in there about city residents that use Trailblazer for a wedding, an event? Did we not have a reduced
I don't
rate
remember
for
that.
them?
I don't think we did for residents.
I don't
What?
think so. Not for profits, for sure, but I don't remember anything for residents.
No, I mean, I've thought that when we very first did it 10 years ago, that we had a rate in there for city residents
I don't
to
remember
use
that way.
to use the park.
I don't remember it being that way.
Yeah, I mean, we might have had some, I just don't remember it.
Ma'am?
Mayor Amadon, in the middle of this, the technical experts have weighed in, and it is an annual fee. The $75 is an annual
All right, that feels
vendor fee.
better. Yeah,
That's-
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it.
That's cool. Okay, great, thank you.
That's a lot of corn.
Yeah.
A lot of
Can we
lettuce.
do a little checking and go back, as Wayne was saying, just to make sure that we don't have something on the books that we have forgotten about, that our residents have a,
It was my understanding that we had a deal, not a deal, but we had a thing set up for residents. Like if you were gonna use the park for like a wedding reception or something to that nature, or if you had like a church event. I know we've had on Easter Sunday, the sunrise service. We've had that there. I mean, we waived the fee completely, things like that. But it was all local churches.
there may have been something for that, because when we were talking about weddings and that sort of thing, but we may not have ever done anything with it, so.
I think it might have just been something that was understood, something that we just did.
Chair Baumgartner, Councilmember McCall will be happy to check into that. I do know that, because we worked on getting the wording right, there is a 50% reduction for the nonprofit agencies in there. And we talked about this last year going through the budget, and I was asking questions about what are we charging for, what are we doing with it? And it is a very reduced fee for the quality of park and the size of a venue, and for a 4-hour. And we talked specifically about keeping it at a very low rate so that it was accessible for those who needed to use it around here, around town, so.
Actually, I
But
had
happy to check the ordinance.
a couple questions about Trailblazer. So I was in the bathrooms last last Saturday. Those are used all the time, and I'm sure they're a lot of work. Do we have money in here to whatever every year to take care of those? You feel good about that?
This budget doesn't specifically have money for the Trailblazer bathrooms. That did not come up in our discussions. However, there is money in the capital improvement plan going forward for, some maintenance upgrades of park
I
facilities.
just had it on my brain because they're just used so much. I know it's like farmer's market, packed music series, so just wanted to make sure we had funds in there. We probably have to redo them every year, honestly, just because they're used so much.
Well, and the redoing is probably just more painting than anything else, I would guess
Pressure
also,
washer
correct?
time.
So that and the faucets and a lot of lavatory stuff gets kind of trashed.
I want to make sure Philip has plenty of money for the bathrooms, is what I'm saying. And as ladies, I would like for it to be nice and clean, which you guys did a great job on that last year.
Mayor, currently, the only thing we have in deferred maintenance is the $50,000 that we're looking at doing the safety security upgrades going forward. But next year, we do have $150,000 in that budget. And going forward from there, we have 250, 300, and 200. But we'll certainly get with Philip and we'll reorder some
Everything
things
else.
if we need
Okay.
to.
Great.
Pretty
Okay,
good to
on the
me.
farmer's market, we'll just put annual in there. Can we add that?
Yes,
Okay.
we can. That's a great,
Jay, this might be a question for you for the tree fund. Are we thinking for North Main Street too, kind of down there on, like across from the high school? Is that kind of on our tree plan of maybe doing something down that way as well? Yes. Okay, great. I just had a random note about sidewalks. One of the Pinestone residents had talked about with the renovations to Poinsett, that if Tubbs Mountain had a sidewalk, now I know that's a long road on that side, but thinking about that group as wanting to walk to Pinestone and get to Tubbs Mountain, then get to Chicora, so just as we're thinking of like long-term for sidewalks, I just thought I would mention that while I had it in my brain. Okay, I think that's all I have right now.
We are always looking for the options of making that connection and not necessarily be
Okay.
other places. Parallel, but how we connect them back
Okay.
to the Pinestone area.
Okay, great, thank
You know,
you.
she hit on a good question. But like on the state, like Tubbs Mountain's a state road. And does the state, do they ever, I mean, if there's not sidewalks there, they ain't going. The state ain't gonna put them there.
they
So
have.
we would have to pretty much eat that if we wanted to put sidewalks in there.
Councilmember McCauley, they, of course, would probably not have a state sidewalk maintenance plan, but they do work with us when they can, and it meets the ARM manual specifics. There's a TAPS grant, Transportation Alternative Programming funding, that Jay and I have spent some time talking about. Could we apply for that and use it on state roads to continue the connectivity with the sidewalks?
You see funds for that as well.
I don't know that we can use C funds for that. I think that was a one-time thing with the Poinsett project. C funds, they're very specific to street improvement, repaving streets. They've gotten really cracked down on that. But I think the TAPS funding is a great alternative to that and come alongside the streets.
That's a great.
Now,
good
if we did
idea,
street
but
work with
that's a
sidewalks, we
heavily
could
used-
mix the two.
That's a heavily used road,
Yeah, it
from
really is.
State Park all the way down to my street.
Be nice to get them walking. While I'm thinking about Poinsett, I know you talked about it, with the state money and the earmarks, so you still feel good about moving that along and what that could look like, or is that still like got a question mark on it?
Well, when we went through our C funds presentation, they made an amendment specifically for Travelers Rest that should we not be successful with the earmark, we could come back and request the funding mid-year, which they typically would not allow. And so we will go back in August and request that funding. They did make sure to leave the funding in there. Of course, we're not guaranteed that they give us the funding. That's a vote by the C Funds Committee. But the funding is available in their pot, and they did make an amendment to allow us to come back mid-year for
Okay,
that
so
request.
Plan A is state money, if they figure out that, and then Plan B is C fund. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have full funding of that project within this if we get the C funds the way that we've been
Correct.
promised.
This funding does hopefully assume that we get the funding from C Funds.
Great.
Wayne,
Thank you.
we're going to get it
Any of
done.
this stuff that we're talking about, is an art grant possible for any of this? That's what paid for this. 100%, $500,000
The ARC.
art Appalachian
the
Regional
ARC grant,
Commission, yeah.
yes. Possibly.
Have we mined that source yet?
I think we had to wait so long. I bet we're up now. Didn't you have to wait
I
10
have
years
not
once
looked
you got
into that.
money
I'd
or
be
something
happy
like
to
that?
look into it.
That's
a good
something,
idea.
there's only Greenville, Spartanburg, Oconee, and Pickens are eligible for in the state of South Carolina.
I know Jay and I did begin looking at that originally, but maybe we got it accomplished with C funds, so we stopped, but we'll look back into it.
Good idea, Wayne.
Is any of the 500,000 that you want to raise for the Dicey Park pledged already?
Yes, we have about 300,000 in Dicey. But of that money, we've brought in about 300,000. And when I say we, I mean Mayor Almadon has brought in about.
I will never do fundraising again. That is a hard job, Kelly, as you know.
And we have
That's
a
hard
grant.
sell, man.
Yeah,
Even the Sons of American Revolution wouldn't give any money.
yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
And we have a grant application that we have been successfully measured right now to continue along in the process for SC 250 for $150,000, which would be utilized to do phase one, which is the site work that's needed to plant the Dicey statue, to plant the Charters of Freedom, and then to do the site work to get us to the grade we need to be at to do the children's garden going forward. So I would say phase one would be getting Dicey statue and the Charters of Freedom set so can be used next year for the 250-year celebrations, and then bringing in the children's park as quickly as we have the funding behind that.
I'm sorry to say again, so we've raised the funds for Dicey, 150,000 for the children's garden, and then raised the funds for the Charters of Freedom. So it's mostly kind of the landscaping and kind of the gateway to Spring Park, and more of the, I don't know, foundational pieces that we got to work towards, but.
Yes.
And is the children's park going to be where the range is now, or is it going to be near so they don't have to exit first?
The concept plan that Jay drew for us, which is really fantastic, I'm super proud of it and thankful to him. It does not anticipate the golf range moving. The timing of such, though, is that Upstate Forever, per the deed restrictions, is not renewing the lease. Probably the timing is such that if it needed to creep further there, they will be gone. We don't want that. That's just what happens per the lease, per the deed restrictions of the property.
Anybody else have anything?
I have one
General-
other.
General fund?
So there's a line for North Poinsett and Tubbs Mountain, the parking lot. Are we doing something specifically to that parking lot on Tubbs?
Councilmember
I know
Mara.
we've dealt with ownership and.
Currently, there's no funding identified for the Tubbs Mountain parking lot, and that's because the project cost came in so high, it was not identified. I think to be determined as to what that cost would be and where that funding would come from.
So the line item is more.
It's
On
residual from
North
prior,
Poinsett.
yeah, it's just residual from the prior budgets. It doesn't roll off until it's no longer in the actuals.
Can I ask about the health insurance? Was the double digits? It's kind of painful, but did we switch anything, or was this just like regular? Okay. And I think that's kind of the norm, unfortunately. I was just curious if we.
Yeah, it typically goes up about 10 to 12% a year, right,
How
Carson?
much it has been. Okay. All right. I was just curious. Oh, and then flock cameras. Is that in here and I missed it?
Flock cameras
Okay.
is in the police line items.
Great.
Let me look that up for you.
It sounds like that's already paying off. And so I was just, wanted to make sure that was something that continued.
Yes. Now, Chief worked with me on that. We don't have as many as we were demoing, but I believe we have 5, Chief, flock cameras.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
And that is in the contracts line of the police
Okay.
department.
Great.
Shannon, will you remind me, the Furman flat fee that we have, is that contractual for a certain time? and then we have to renegotiate, or is it's a yearly thing?
Yes, ma'am. It goes up for 3 years. It's contractual for the 3-year period, so we saw it step up this year. It'll step up again next year. It will remain flat the year after that, and then it's time to renegotiate.
Y'all did a great job. Thank you for
Thank you.
cleaning up the budget and really working hard. Y'all done a great job.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Shannon, do I need to make an amendment then to the farmer's market vendor fee to add the word annual to the fee schedule?
You can. I think that's an easy,
There's probably other annual fees on there.
yeah. I think that that's an easy fix to make, just to add the word in there.
Yeah, worry about that. Any other comments then? All right, we have a motion and a second to move the general fund budget on to full council for voting. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, we are moving it on. Let me make a motion to send to full council, presenting before council the local hospitality and local accommodation tax funds of the City of Travelers Rest by making appropriations therefore, and to provide the budget control of said appropriations by the City of Travelers Rest City Council and such other matters related therefore effectively July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. Hospitality revenue of $1,465,168 and expenditures of $1,458,762. Accommodations revenue, $189,000 and expenditures of $175,500. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All right, hospitality and accommodations tax. Any comments or conversation here?
Stands on its own. Okay.
Really good with all of this. And we are intentionally not transferring out as much this year to keep it where it belongs in the fund to be able to use it. All right, hearing no comments, let me see a show of hands to go ahead and move this on to full council. And that passes also. Thank you, Wall. All right, I present before council the fiscal affairs of the Victims Advocate Fund of the City of Travelers Rest, making appropriations therefore and to provide the budget control of said appropriations by the Travelers Rest City Council and such other matters related therefore effectively July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have that. Any conversation about the Victims Advocate Fund?
I think I heard something on the news about these funds being adjusted due to some changes at the federal level. Is that true?
Councilmember Byers, I'm not sure about that. I did,
I have not heard, but I will check on it.
If you haven't heard it, it's probably, it was just, you can't keep track anymore, but I felt like I heard something about that and wasn't sure.
this budget was put together, thank you very much, by Chief and Teresa Howard, to try to utilize it as best as we could going forward.
Yeah, and this is such a narrow fund to be able to use it. Thank you both for working so hard on that to use it as best we can. All right, hearing no other comments, let's have a show of hands to move this on to full council. We have it all. Thank you. All right, presenting before council the Tree Mitigation Fund relating to the fiscal affairs of the Tree Mitigation Fund of the City of Travelers Rest, making appropriations therefore and to provide the budget control of said appropriations by the Travelers Rest City Council and such other matters related therefore effectively July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any conversation then about the Tree Mitigation Fund?
I have one question about the tree mitigation. Jay? On Bradford Pears, do you charge people, do you actually make them pay to cut them damn things down?
We don't have any, anything in place to whether we pay to cut it down or anything. That crossed my mind one day to have the ability to grant where we could do a replacement of ton of them over like
Go there and you go down our street and it's like all the old Coleman properties completely lined out with them. And then there, from so many years, that whole pasture is just full.
We don't have any city ones, do we, anymore, do we?
we don't have city ones.
Okay.
And this whole discussion of whether they're Bradford pears or Calorie pears.
Yeah.
So Bradford pears are the species, but nurserymen started selling Calorie pears, and they cause Bradford pears to reproduce. So then you have these Bradford pears that property that would be easy to we really don't want to get into the business of removing that. Costly to remove. I mean, available for something like that that have been written, because those things are bare and they do a lot of damage to. They're hard to get rid of because they. Bradford pear, you get rid of it and it's gone.
Are you
Jay, there
saying,
seems like-
if they're clear cutting and there's
Yeah,
a Bradford
yeah.
pear, do we charge them
Yeah.
to remove a Bradford pear, or are we like, we didn't want that one anyways?
Well, isn't the state banned it banned sales of them?
Ban the sales and planting of them.
And so, but, now just along the rumor mill, I had also read or heard somewhere that by a certain year, they're gonna require them to be gone anyway.
I will look into that.
But right now, we don't have anything specific in our tree ordinance providing for anything for or against Bradford pears right now.
No, except our tree ordinance.
Just a tree
Has
ordinance,
them listed as a tree that we
Yeah.
can use.
right.
Jay, I was
Should we
going to say,
Call to order another meeting after this to go ahead and adjust that ordinance.
That's such a whole, Bradford pears are a whole thing.
it seems like Clemson had a program a few years ago, this might have been
They
pre-COVID.
still do.
That they, like they will remove the Bradford pear for free. But I don't know if there has to be a certain number, but that might be something we can look into as a city to definitely put out there as an option, because I know that our subdivision is layered with them.
Was that, do you
It is,
I'm not totally sure,
it's the university.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
basically gonna make them get rid of them, right?
But if we can work with them and kind of put that out there, I think that would be a good thing.
Other comments for the tree mitigation fund?
I'm good.
Hearing none, show of hands to send this on to council. We've got that, thank you. All right, last thing is the motion to send to full council, presenting before council the City of Travelers Rest fiscal year 2026 before council is the GO bond relating to the fiscal affairs of the general obligation bond of the City of Travelers Rest, making appropriations therefore and not to exceed $210,000 on behalf of the Travelers Rest City Council and such other matters related therefore effectively July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. My motion is there. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second on the GO bond. Discussion. This is, by the way, to pay for our building. All right, hearing no discussion, do I have a show of hands to move this on? All right, we're all doing that. We have got that. Anything else at this time, Ms. Shannon, that we need to discuss or look at?
Sir, thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate this very much. Carson and Shannon, thank you very much for your hard work. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
All right, we are done. Thank you all. We will be back on Thursday.